Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to the last session for today before dinner. Patience. And this is indeed a very special session we have, addressing the challenge of sustainability. And we have with us Shri Bhupender Yadav, the Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, and our two international guests who are our guests of honor for today, His Excellency Mr. Lyonpo Leke Dorji, Honorable Minister of Finance from Bhutan, and His Excellency Mr. Musa Zamir, Honorable Minister of Finance from Maldives. So we're just turning the table around and we'll start with the session right away. Request you all to please remain seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our esteemed guests for this session, our three honorable ministers from Government of India, from Maldives, and from Bhutan. Please join me in welcoming them. And to begin this session, may I ask Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, to give his opening remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the very final session of a two-day marathon conference and forum that we have had on global economic policy. So as we conclude the Global Economic Policy Forum, we could have had no better session to conclude with than on the subject of addressing the challenge of sustainability. Subject which is today predominant across the globe. And we are so delighted to have our Honorable Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change of the Government of India, Shri Bhupender Yadav, joining us here today. Honorable Minister, sir, a very, very warm welcome to you to this conclave. Our minister is also joined by two very important countries which have huge stake in this subject. And I am happy to welcome our Honorable Minister of Finance from Bhutan, His Excellency Mr. Lyonpo Leke Dorji, who has been a part of this conference, and also the Honorable Minister of Finance from Maldives, His Excellency Mr. Musa Zamir. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome once again. We are today talking in this forum with the theme of decadal priorities for the global economy. And therefore, this session and the subject of it is so important. Today, our country, India, has made phenomenal progress and has become a global sustainability leader, catalyzed by our government's unique, innovative, and if I may say, path-breaking initiatives, programs, and many schemes. And today we see our country, India, now at the forefront of pro-planet actions with long-term sustainability commitments, which have been exemplified through many partnerships, global partnerships. We have had to begin with the International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure and Global Biofuel Alliance, many others. And it's been a great honor and pleasure always to work with our Honorable Minister, Shri Bhupendra Yadav ji, who has been participating, contributing, and guiding Indian businesses in this, in multifarious ways in this, in this arena. And today, when we have, as an institution, focused on water, on green, on sustainable agriculture, sustainable development as such, we have found in Mr. Bhupendra Yadav ji a leader who has really not only consulted and given his time to the businesses, but has been a practical global leader on behalf of Indian businesses, Indian thoughts, Indian vision in this space of sustainability and climate. So it is going to be a great half an hour, 45 minutes of listening to three very, very important people connected to this space. And I will first go with the two visitors and then come to our own minister. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And ministers, thank you also for joining us for this ultimate session of this Global Economic Policy Forum, which is being organized by the CII in partnership with the Ministry of Finance. So once again, thank you and a very, very good evening. I would invite Mr. Limpo Lekidorji, the Honorable Minister of Finance of Bhutan, our guest of honor, to give his address first. Thank you. Please.
Your Excellency, Shri Bhupendra Yadav, Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Your Excellency, Mr. Musa Zamir, Honorable Minister of Finance, Republic of Maldives. Director General of the Confederation of Indian Industry, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, moderator for this session. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an intellectually stimulating 2 days here. I would like to take this opportunity to first thank the Finance Minister, Her Excellency Nirmala Sitharaman, and CII leadership for inviting me to this important event and the excellent arrangements made for the hospitality. India is such a big country, indeed, a continent in itself, with many of its states much bigger in terms of population, geographical size, and the size of its GDP than many countries of the world. I will therefore not even make an attempt to suggest how India should go on achieving your commitment of net zero carbon by 2070 while pursuing an aggressive growth to achieve Viksit Bharat 2047. I will humbly share Bhutan's experiences with climate change and sustainable financing, making clean energy transition, and our end goal of all development activities, happiness. My first story is about climate change and sustainable financing. Allow me to present the climate vulnerability situation of Bhutan. The country, located in the eastern Himalayas, is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. There are 567 glacial lakes, with 17 lakes having been identified as potentially dangerous, intensifying the risks of glacial lake outbursts. Further, our glaciers with debris are retreating at 30 to 35 meters per year and the clean type glaciers are retreating at 12 to 16 meters per year. This poses a great threat to climate-sensitive sectors of hydropower and agriculture in Bhutan, which contribute a high share to the national GDP and create a high portion of green jobs in the country. The retreatment of our glaciers is further exacerbated by climate projection for surface temperature in Bhutan, which indicates the possibility of an increase of about 0.8 to 1.6 degrees Celsius between 2021 to 2050, and about 1.6 to 2.8 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Being cognizant of the country's vulnerability to climate change, Bhutan has launched our National Adaptation Plan, NEP, last year based on the climate risk assessment of 4 sectors. Based on the climate risk assessment of 4 sectors, water, agriculture, forest and biodiversity, and health, Bhutan's first NEP has prioritized the needs and enabling activities for 7 sectors of adaptation priorities. Currently, the Adaptation Investment Plan for the implementation of Bhutan's NEP has been prepared for water, agri-food, and energy sector with objectives to establish interlinkages and cross-cutting nature of the actions to access climate finance. This guarantees the royal government to pursue sector-specific resource mobilization and streamline programming in an ability to enhance adaptation and resilience besides evidence-based tracking and monitoring of the investments. For Bhutan to implement 100% of the adaptation priorities in 7 sectors resolutely, an estimated financing of $14 billion is required. However, the country is challenged by the limited scale of resources from the climate financing windows, and our ineligibility to LDCI programming further limits access to specialized climate financing windows for the adaptation priorities. In the 13th five-year plan, the royal government will make efforts to cumulative emission reduction of about 12,507 gigagrams of carbon dioxide by 2030. Series of actions at local and national levels aim to enhance people's lives and livelihood and adaptability and resilience through one of the overall strategic objectives of climate resilience and ecological diversity. The country, in the effort to translate the policies into bankable projects, require the support of bilateral partners, multilateral development banks, and climate financing windows through a mix of loan and grant coupled with technical assistance. Bhutan has also initiated Bhutan for Life project, Project Finance for Performance, Permanence, PFP, first of its kind in Asia, and one of the first PFP models in the world to complement Bhutan's efforts of conservation. Several national parks linked with biological corridors crisscross the country, and Bhutan for Life is a solution to conserve them. Inability to realize the ambitious NEP shall impose different challenges and risks such as climate-induced pests and diseases, drought, food insecurity, and lower economic growth. Adaptation investment plans for priority sectors, particularly water, charters a financial strategy and processes granular steps to resource mobilization. In recent years, Bhutan has made significant progress in establishing innovative financing for climate actions, including the introduction of green taxonomy, development of the sustainable finance framework, and the establishment of Bhutan Climate Fund. Bhutan's sustainable financing framework and Bhutan Climate Fund are expected to play crucial roles in supporting the country's climate adaptation priorities outlined in the NEP. The Sustainable Financing Framework aims to integrate environmental, social, and governance, ESG, into financial decision-making. The framework further motivates the private sector in engaging climate adaptation by providing a systematic approach to assessing and managing climate risks. This can attract additional funding for projects that might not have been funded through traditional channels or widens the room to explore resources from the non-traditional donors and development partners. The framework also promotes investment transparency in how climate funds are used, which can build investor confidence and ensure that resources are used sustainably. This is particularly important for tracking the impact of investments and ensuring they meet adaptation goals. Therefore, it supports a mechanized reporting that reinforces the US $100 billion goal of Paris Agreement and the new collective quantified goal under discussion. Further, Bhutan will participate in carbon markets as an important additional source of finance and investments in the 13th five-year plan through strengthening of Bhutan carbon market and Bhutan Climate Fund. Bhutan Climate Fund is being proposed as a means of alternative development financing through the country's participation in the emerging carbon market under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Bhutan's constitution requires 60% of the country to be under forest cover forever, and the figure currently is 72%. Bhutan's laws on conservation, water, and environment, although stringent, have served the country well. Bhutan is not just carbon neutral, we are carbon negative, and at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly recently, Bhutan has initiated the establishment of G0, a group of carbon neutral or carbon negative countries. We are working with Green Climate Fund to open G0 Secretariat in Thimphu. My second story is about making clean energy transition. Cooperation in hydropower is the cornerstone of the relationship between Bhutan and India since the first hydropower plant in Chukha. It is a win-win collaboration. Bhutan is able to harness our abundant natural resources and earn valuable rupees to finance our development activities, providing free health and education to our people, among others, while India gets clean energy to balance its grid. The great boon of the nature is Bhutan's production of green energy peaks in summer when India needs the most energy and ebbs when India does not need. While we have just over 2,400 megawatts of hydropower now, we are about to commission 1,020 megawatt Puna Sangchu 2 on 17th December, coinciding with the 117th National Day of Bhutan. 1,200 megawatt Puna Sangchu 1 is at the advanced stage of completion, and several small hydropower projects will be commissioned next year. Thank you, India, and thank you, people of India. Bhutan's cabinet has recently approved renewable energy roadmap, which would see the harnessing of additional 20,000 megawatts of renewable energy by 2040. Most of these projects will be implemented through public-private partnership models involving Indian partners. Bhutan is making concerted efforts to transition to e-mobility and reduce dependence on fossil fuels. There is zero tax on electric vehicles and nominal taxes on hybrid vehicles to encourage their deployment. As the prices of e-vehicles are expected to fall with enhanced battery capacities, we think e-vehicles or hybrid vehicle is the future. My last and third story is about happiness as end goal of our development efforts. Bhutan works closely with IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and the Asian Development Bank, and we look at GDP as a measure of progress and development. But we also have our own homegrown metric for measure of progress and development called Gross National Happiness Index. We believe and understand that GDP is not a full measure of human progress, so we take happiness as the end result of all our development efforts. we conduct extensive gross national happiness surveys after every 4 years with measures which measures the state of happiness in the country through 9 domains of GNH and its indicators. These 9 domains are psychological well-being, health, time use, education, cultural diversity, good governance, community vitality, ecological diversity, and living standards. There are indicators under each of these 9 domains to assess happiness. During the 13th five-year plan, we used GNH Index as one of the criteria to allocate block grants to our local governments. Among the world's top 100 economies, only 30 are countries in terms of annual revenues, and 70 are corporations. Corporations have bigger economies in terms of annual revenues than most nations. For instance, 8 corporations have revenues bigger than Indian economy. If we expand the list, the ratio gets even worse. Of the 200 top economies by the size of revenue, 157 are corporations. This translates to about 79% being corporations. Our lives are influenced by either our government or the corporations whose goods and services we depend on. Some corporations exert more power than most governments. So it is important how the companies operate and function. Therefore, the GNH, which is gross national happiness of business, is important. So Bhutan has started assessing businesses to see if they are GNH certified or not. GNH of business certification is based on 9 GNH domains and 46 indicators to assess and see if a business is GNH certified with a rating of either 3 stars, which means the values of the business is moderately aligned with the values of GNH. 4-star, if the values of the business is extensively aligned with the GNH values. Or 5 stars, the value of the business is almost perfectly aligned with the GNH values. The GNH certification aims to increase the accountability of the businesses for any social and environmental externalities brought about by businesses during its setup and in course of its operations, to reorient the businesses towards enhancing the interests of all stakeholders and not just the shareholders, to bring about positive organizational change in the way businesses are conducted, to bring about commitments to promote holistic well-being, including its workers and the community in which the businesses operate, and to enhance the brand credibility and reputation. I'll end my story here. Bhutan's story of sustainability in the face of the changing world. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to my stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that nice speech with great stories relating to sustainability and many facets of it as you expanded, including when you concluded with happiness. I deeply appreciate your involvement, your presence, and participation at the Global Economic Policy Forum throughout the last 2 days. Thank you very much. With that, ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure and honor to welcome the Honorable Minister of Finance from Maldives, His Excellency, Mr. Musa Zamir, to give his address, please.
Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of the Government of India, Shri Bhupender Yadav, Honorable Minister of Finance of the Government of Bhutan, His Excellency Yopo Leke Dorji, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to you. It's a pleasure to be here today at the Global Economic Policy Forum 2024, hosted by Confederation of Indian Industry to share perspectives on current state of the global economy and the challenge we face in the coming decade. As the Finance Minister of the Maldives, I stand before you representing a small island developing state that is not only deeply impacted by global economic forces, but also has a unique role to play in addressing the pressing issues of climate change, sustainability, and debt resilience. We meet today at a time when the world faces an array of interconnected crises, from geopolitical tension to economic volatility. The aftershocks of Russia-Ukraine war and the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East continue to reverberate across the global markets. These crises have exacerbated existing inflammatory pressures, simultaneously underlining the urgent need for sustainable growth. At the same time, the pandemic-induced rise in debt poses significant challenges, particularly for smaller open economies. The Russia-Ukraine war, which began in 2022, marked a turning point for the global economy. While the war has inflicted untold human suffering, its economic consequences have been profound, with a sharp rise in energy and food prices, supply chain disruption, and growing uncertainty. Globally, inflation surged to levels not seen in decades, creating a challenging environment for peacekeepers and central banks. India, as one of the fast-growing major economies, has demonstrated remarkable resilience in the face of these challenges. However, inflation, particularly food and energy, has burdened so many sectors of the economy, and controlling it remains a delicate and balancing act. As one of the largest energy consumers and a key player in global trade, India's economic policies are critical not only for its own future, but also for the global economy. For small island developing states like the Maldives, the impact of inflation has been even more profound. Our economies are highly vulnerable to external shocks and rising costs in imports, particularly energy and food, have strained our limited fiscal resources. The key challenge for peacemakers in these economies, the key challenges for policymakers in these economies is how to mitigate the chronic impacts of inflation while maintaining the long-term trajectory of growth and sustainable development. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, governments around the world were forced to increase spending to protect their populations, leading to sharp increase in debt levels. While this was a necessary and prudent response to an unprecedented crisis, the challenge now is to manage and sustain the debt. The key challenge is to strike the right balance between fiscal prudence and addressing the political and strategic realities of the day. And so, we must be creative in finding sustainable ways to manage our debt, enhance our revenue generation, and protect the most vulnerable from the economic fallout of debt accumulation. Further, international cooperation and access to concessional finance is vital to avoid countries like Maldives to achieve its sustainability targets around energy and universal access to water and sanitation, whilst maintaining medium-term fiscal stability. Turning to sustainability, we are at a crucial juncture in global economy. The urgency to tackle climate change has never been clearer, and the need for green energy and technology investments is paramount. For India, a rapidly growing economy, the shift to greener economy is both an opportunity and a challenge. India has already made great strides in solar energy sector and is a leader in clean energy innovation, achieving a total capacity of 200 gigawatts of renewable energy power generation in this year. However, scaling these efforts requires continued investment, innovation, and strong support. For the Maldives, the stakes are even higher. My nation is among the first to feel the effect of climate change. For rising sea levels to extreme weather events, we are the front lines of the climate crisis. Yet, our economy is adequately equipped to tackle these challenges. However, despite our vulnerabilities, we also have unique opportunity to lead the way in sustainable development. This is why Maldives has committed to generate 33% of energy demand from renewable sources by the end of 2028. In fact, we are currently making significant investments in renewable energy, sustainable tourism, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Nevertheless, achieving these goals require substantial international support, both in terms of financing and technology transfer. Beyond the urgent need for green transition, escalating impact of climate change has also brought on about yet another defining challenge to our time: water security. Rising global temperature disrupt rainfall patterns, intensify drought, and cause devastating floods. For the Maldives and many other nations, these changes threaten not only water availability, but the very essence of sustainability, our ability to meet today's needs without compromising the future. India's initiatives in this front offer hope and inspiration. The Jal Jeevan Mission, delivering pipe water to millions, and Namami Ganga program, rejuvenating rivers, show that sustainable water management is achievable through bold, innovative actions. India's EPIC response framework in Assam exemplifies the integration of food and drought management, a model worthy of universal adaptation. Globally, a 40% water supply shortfall by 2030 looms unless we act now. Water security requires a forward-thinking, multidimensional approach. To achieve this, we must place emphasis on precise water management. Advanced tools such as remote sensing and AI can help in this regard. By mapping our water resources and predicting crises before they materialize. In addition, an integrated approach should be taken to resource management. After all, water does not exist in soil. We must emerge strategies to surface water, groundwater, and watershed into cohesive system. Collaboration is equally crucial. Shared rivers must unite us, not divide us. By working together across borders, we can ensure equitable water access for all. Beyond this, nature itself offers us powerful solutions. Restoration of wetland and reforestation of watershed areas can improve flood control and revitalize ecosystems of groundwater discharge. At this time, it is also imperative that we bear in mind that it is agriculture that consumes the lion's share of our water resources. Therefore, we ought to seek ways to install micro-irrigation systems like drip and sprinkler technologies and transition to water-efficient crop suited to local climates to sustain required food production without depleting precious water supplies. Lastly, technology and innovation can provide lifelines, especially in regions facing acute shortage in water. Solar-powered desalination systems and cost-effective purification technologies must be scaled to reach the undeserved populations, ensuring clean water for all. We now believe that water security underpins economic growth, environmental health, and human dignity. By uniting technology, innovation, and cooperation, we can secure a future where water sustains, not divides our world. Looking ahead, the next decade presents policymakers with crucial choices: how to balance political imperatives such as addressing the immediate needs of vulnerable population with long fiscal sustainability necessary for economic stability. For cities like the Maldives, the challenge is compounded by our most sole dependency on tourism for foreign exchange receipts, making our fiscal policy extremely sensitive to external shocks. Therefore, ensuring macro-fiscal stability and attaining debt sustainability is likely to remain as the prime concern for the Maldives this decade amidst the urgent need to address sustainability and social equality issues. In conclusion, the global economy is at critical crossroad. While challenges abound, whether in managing inflation, debt, transition to green economy, or attainment of critical water security, there are also tremendous opportunities for growth, especially if we strategically invest in green energy. Technology, clean water, access to building climate resilience. For large economies like India, for smaller open economies like the Maldives, the way forward will require a fine balance between fiscal prudence and political priorities. This will require innovative thinking, global cooperation, and a commitment to long-term vision. Qualities that India and the Maldives continue to share are part of our special bilateral relationship. I thank you.
Excellency Minister, thank you very much for that very detailed and, if I may say, very important message and picture of how Maldives is looking and leading some of the stories that you mentioned. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, so important that we had two finance ministers of two very important neighbors of ours to speak about the sustainability and climate, about sustainability and climate in an economic policy conclave. So it's indeed, it was heartening listening to both our leaders. With that, may I now have the pleasure and honor of inviting our chief guest for the session, Shri Bhupender Yadav ji, our Honorable Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change.
His Excellency Mr. Leonopo Doroji, Minister of Finance, Bhutan, His Excellency Mr. Musa Zamir, Minister of Finance, Maldives, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, ladies and gentlemen. CII Global Economic Policy Forum 2024 highlights the most urgent topics of our times through deliberations around the theme Decadal Priorities for the Global Economy. For a world that's seeing instrumentable challenges, prioritizing the most concerning issue is urgent because only then can we work together to resolve them. The world is facing the changes of climate change and temperature rise. And Mr. Doroji talk about his problem, the melting of glaciers. And Mr. Musa Zamir also raising the concern about the rising of sea level. And I'm sitting between both of them because we are having a 7,500 kilometer long seashore, and one side we have the Himalayan glacier also. So addressing the challenge of sustainability, which is also the theme of this session, is one of the most urgent issues right now for most countries. In any country's economic growth journey, maintaining a balance amongst the three elements of sustainability. First, environmental protection. Second, economic resilience. And the third, social and intergenerational equity is essential. In India, we have adopted a holistic approach toward the climate crisis. It is crisis of rising temperature, of biodiversity loss, and of land degradation. Just this month, I have returned from Riyadh after attending COP16 of UNCCD, where I spoke about how the challenge of sustainability must factor in the challenge of land degradation too. I highlighted how, with Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji leading the nation, we in India believe that the land is not only for human beings, and that we share this planet with other life forms which too have rights over Earth's resources. So, we are not merely look at the sustainability of humans, but of all life forms, including animals, trees, and plants. The world has acknowledged that India is indeed the voice of Global South in this regard. We have adopted a circular economy which offers a paradigm shift away from the traditional linear model of take, make, and dispose to a more regenerative approach that emphasizes reducing, reusing, and recycling materials. Increasing frequency and severity of national disasters as well, geopolitics has made it critical for countries to work towards a sustainable and resilient growth strategy. At the same time, countries need to ensure that meeting the needs of economic growth does not give rise to environmental concerns or widen the inequalities. There is a need to develop strategies that focus on accelerating growth in an environmentally responsible manner while keeping in mind the concerns around equity. So, how can countries harmonize their growth goals while giving consideration to the three elements of sustainability? Government policies in conjunction with public-private partnerships and stakeholder action can create a balanced approach to these three pillars. This, in turn, will enable countries to work towards fostering a global focus on sustainability while simultaneously helping them remove barriers to economic growth. For a country like India, with ambition to become a developed nation by 2047 and achieve net zero emissions by 2070, maintaining equilibrium in these three elements of sustainability is critical, which is why India has prioritized linkages of these pillars in national policies, rules, schemes, and programs. So what are some of these emerging issues and how can government resolve these challenges? Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our times. According to recent estimates, climate crisis costs the global economy 12% GDP for every 1 degree rise in temperature. A 3-degree temperature rise by the end of this century could lead to more than a 50% decline in output, capital, and consumption by 2100, leaving people 50% poorer than they would otherwise have been. India is no exception to these far-reaching consequences. As a nation, this is significantly vulnerable to the impacts of climate vulnerability, including extreme events such as heat waves, floods, droughts, and cyclones. India prioritizes integration of climate concern into countries' development planning. This is visible through the government's increased spending on adaptation-related activities from 3.7% of GDP in 2015-16 to 5.60% of the GDP in 21-22. Under the National Adaptation Fund on Climate Change, project worth more than 847 crore have been sanctioned in 27 states and union territories. Another planned initiative towards this is the development of a climate finance taxonomy that aims to enhance the availability of capital for adaptation and mitigation. India's National Action Plan on Climate Change has shaped the strategy to improve the sustainability of India's development journey by integrating and prioritizing climate consideration into all sections of the economy. 7 of the 9 national missions under National Action Plan on Climate Change focuses on enhancing adaptive strategies, working on different areas of solar, water, energy efficiency, forest, sustainable habitat, sustainable agriculture, sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem, strategic knowledge for climate change, and recently added mission on human health. As 34 state action plan on climate change outline key action for states and focus on addressing climate challenge specific to each state or union territory, helping to localize climate initiatives. Industrial sector plays a crucial role in a country's growth, and to promote sustainable industrial growth, transition to circular economy is critical. Adopting circular practices reduces environmental impact, improves resource efficiency, and creates new businesses and employment opportunities. By empowering industry to respond to changing demand through policies that support both sustainable consumption and production, governments enable them to contribute efficiently towards growth targets. India is progressing on developing a conducive policy ecosystem for progressing toward a circular economy. The Niti Aayog has developed 11 action plans for sectors to transition towards a circular economy. For a regulatory perspective, extended producer responsibility schemes have been developed and implemented for various waste streams. Initiatives such as a Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, a Smart City Mission, have also showcased India's circular economy models at scale. Through these rules and guidelines, India encouraged producers to take a lifestyle approach for products, bringing in more transparent and responsible mechanism for environmental protection and sustainable business practices. Driving collective and collaborative actions for sustainability is an urgent imperative. And India is at the forefront of this journey with groundbreaking initiatives such as the Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, CDRI, Global Biofuel Alliance, GBA, Leadership Group on Industry Transition, led it, International Solar Alliance, ISA, Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy Industry Coalition, International Big Cat Alliance, and the Gandhinagar Implementation Roadmap and Information Platform, among others. Through various national programs, India drives awareness and behavior change campaigns to motivate citizens to shift to environment-friendly practices. One of the most important initiatives by India in this regard is Mission Life lifestyle for environment, launched by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji at COP26. It is a global sustainability movement that follows a simple strategy, encouraging individuals to practice simple yet effective environment-friendly actions in their daily lives. The potential of life's implementation will have a direct impact on emission reduction instead of new impositions. Life seeks to introduce change in lifestyle so that the emission reduction becomes a natural outcome of how we live. And the possibilities of the impact created through such program is enormous. Estimates by the International Energy Agency suggest that implementing Mission Life Action has the potential to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 2 billion tons annually by 2030. The world also acknowledged the benefits of this program. As you know, in March this year, United Nations Environment Assembly adopted the resolution on sustainable lifestyles submitted by India. Recognizing the contribution of India in promoting lifestyle for environment for sustainable consumption and production, India has been nominated for a 2-year seat on the board of 10-year framework of program under UNEP. Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, launched this year by Honorable Prime Minister. It is another unique initiative that inspires citizens to plant trees in the name of their own mother and for Mother Earth. India successfully met its ambitious goal of planting 750 million trees across the country in less than 5 months. This achievement made possible through collaborative efforts from local government bodies, communities and stakeholders highlight the potential of such programs in leading the transition to a green economy. India believes that voluntary actions are important for environment initiatives, and by offering green credit as reward through Green Credit Program, India incentivizes citizens, communities, and industry to participate in environment-friendly activities. In fact, the Ideas for Life portal that collects suggestions and concepts to encourage behavioral change towards environment-friendly lifestyles and seen 46.5 million impressions and 1,000 plus ideas in just 6 months. Regional systematic concern of the Global South also need to be addressed as the world today is on a growth path that cannot be paused. Global North's development journey has left very little carbon space for developing countries. It is important for all countries to have a lower carbon emission development pathway, but this can become a challenge for developing countries due to different focuses, areas and priorities. For Global South's sustainable development journey, it is important for developed countries to fulfill their obligations promised at UNFCCC COP and CBD's COP. India, as a leading voice for Global South, continues to advocate for the interests of developing nations at the international stage. An emerging issue I would like to highlight is the emergence of new global trade policies and regulation with consideration for climate actions and use of biodiversity and biological resources. The cost of doing business across borders has been increasing due to these new policies, and for most sectors in India, this is a major cause of concern. For some sectors, this can also bring opportunities in the form of expanding target market and through advancing synergies that enable the shift to a low-carbon economy. We need to be better prepared for both the challenges and the opportunities arising from these regulations. Focused deliberation are needed to share ideas and solutions for the collective action required to resolve the challenge around these emerging issues. And I will like to congratulate CII for creating this exemplary platform which brings together global stakeholders to take forward these global concerns. I hope the engagements at the forum during these 2 days enable stakeholders to reaffirm the commitment to a sustainable future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that outstanding speech highlighting India's vision and India's way of addressing the concern, the global concern of climate by a way in a manner of commitment which is not just inclusive but also very unique. And it was also great to hear India's action taken report that you actually presented. With this three leaders speaking to us today, we saw the leadership as well as the resolve of the Global South to a concern, to an issue which our Honorable Minister highlighted, where we are not the major contributor. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to a conclusion of this session. But as we conclude this session, we also conclude the Global Economic Policy Forum 2024. And I'd like to really thank the two overseas ministers who are present here, the honorable ministers from Maldives and from Bhutan, who not only spoke but also participated very enthusiastically throughout the 2 days, and our Honorable Minister of Environment, Forests and Climate, who really brought in so much of emotions, if I may say, of the Global South and India in this huge, important area of policy framework. I'd like to also thank all the speakers, both from overseas as well as India, who have participated over the 2 days and who are present in this session. All our participants, which includes businesses of India from across the country, and of course all the think tanks, our researchers, our economists, our policy makers, and of course our ministers and officials, all of them who have been involved. Very, very special thanks also to the high commissioners and ambassadors of various countries, the diplomats who participated over the 2 days, and of course all the delegates and who got opportunities to speak, or many of who could not speak but did contribute through their participation. And at the end, I would really like to thank the organizing committee of the Ministry of Finance and the team from the CII for making this very highlight summit of India and the globe. Thank you very much, Excellencies. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
CB, may I request you to kindly hand over a token of appreciation to our chief guest first for today. And a token of appreciation to our two international guests of honor that are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, with that we conclude the Global Economic Forum organized by the Ministry of Finance and the Confederation of Indian Industry. Thank you for being such an excellent audience. Thank you for being with us for the 2 days. I'd like all of you to give a round of applause for the audience and for the guests and for the summit as well. Thank you so much.